of atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me, sins of old on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me, sins of old on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me, sins of old on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all. Nikaya 3 refuges. Buddham saranam gacchami. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. I take refuge in Sangha. The 5 remembrances. I know the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I know the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. This precious human life, rarely encountered, is easily lost. Now that I have life and opportunity, may I practice the Dharma wholeheartedly. Mahayana Refuge. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. Invocation of lineage. I give thanks for the guidance of my teachers, for the lineage of teachers before them. I give thanks and offerings for their devoted practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom, skillful means, unshakable vow, spiritual powers, and awakened awareness for my benefit. May their years of life be lengthened, may their vows be completely realized, and may I cultivate these perfections with their guidance. 7 practices of the Bodhisattva. I bow down in body, speech, and mind. I offer the best I have to give, both real and imagined, to fill the space between us. I regret and purify all transgressions. I rejoice in all virtues. I request you to remain until total enlightenment. I request wise and compassionate guidance. I dedicate my merit for the sake of all beings. Generating love and compassion. May all sentient beings be free from clinging and hatred. Being close to some and distant from others, how wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from clinging and hatred, lest needing to accomplish this. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them happiness and the causes of happiness. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from suffering and the causes of suffering. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings have the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from clinging, hatred, jealousy, miserliness, doubt, pride, wrong view, ignorance, and dualistic thoughts. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them to this state. Bless me to accomplish this. Please stand for the Heart Sutra on page 4. Great Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva practicing the Prajna Paramita clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form, form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form, sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all things are essentially empty, not formed, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without cause, without gain. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no seeing, and so on, to no thinking, no ignorance, and also no ending of ignorance, and so on, to no old age and death, and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering, cause of suffering, cessation, hath no wisdom, has no attainment, since there is nothing to attain. A bodhisattva lives by Prajna Paramita with no hindrance in is nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future live by Prajnaparamita, attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajnaparamita is the great sacred mantra, the great vivid mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not mere formality. Therefore set forth the Prajnaparamita mantra, set forth this mantra, and proclaim Gate Gate Para, Gate Parsam, Gate Bodhi Swaha, Gate Gate Para, Gate Parsam, Gate Bodhi Swaha, Gate Gate Para, Gate Parsam, Gate Bodhi Swaha. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now. The wind blows, waves fall on the shore, and Guanyin finds the dark and broken roads. We give thanks to all the ancestors of meditation in the still falls, the unknown women and men, centuries of enlightened women and men, rain and clouds and autumn breezes. Let wisdom go to every corner of the house. Let people have joy in each other's joy. We especially dedicate these merits to Jack, Kaylin, Gokyo, Colleen, Jenny, Stephen, Soke, Roger, Debbie, Fukan, Sister Suzette, Katie. May they have peace and healing, as well as Kendall, Charlie, Buddy Hill, Joanne, Sandra at the time of their death, as well as those whose names we hold in the silence of our hearts and those whose names we now voice aloud. May
Representative.
Sign the covenant on page 8. Read the Action Kokochi Sangha with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the wisdom and compassion we seek to cultivate by practice, and with deep gratitude for the teachers of this lineage and our connection to one another, covenant to support each other by upholding the precepts of doing no harm, practicing good, and actualizing good for others. Please be seated for today's talk. We'll also do the Gatha Avalokana Sutra on that same page. Gatha on opening the sutra.
So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for choosing to be here together. This is a season of travel for many, and myself, Doan and Ryuko will be heading off with Hoshi and Rena and Daniel to Scotland in a couple of hours. So they're at the house, feverishly packing and plotting, trying to clean things, and here we are together. So, a few things before we get into the talk. One, isn't it wonderful to see so many Raksu in the house, right? I mean, it's just what a joy, you know. Dogen's successor placed a great emphasis on making the precepts available, make it accessible, give folks the opportunity to take refuge and to practice, and we certainly take up in the same flavor. But simply making it available doesn't do anything. People have to actually step in and step up and get connected and do the thing. And it's one of the interesting things with modern social media. You know, I get reminded of my digital past regularly. Perhaps you do as well. And right around this time of year, I get these all these pictures from the various Jukai classes, and it always gives me pause, you know. First of all, I look back at some of the earlier pictures and think, oh my God, how young we were. I mean, wow, my goodness me, you know. But then also just how long we've been practicing this together, and how even with the inevitable ebb and flow of people's lives, the Sangha is flourishing, the Sangha is strong, the practice is deep, and it's an honor to really be a part of all of that with all you all. So thank you very much. And please don't be satisfied with the apparent. Keep leaning in, and the precepts, they will not fail you. Neither will the refuges. Stay awake to them. Now, I would like to press on a little bit with the Lankavatara Sutra, and as a bit of an hors d'oeuvre, I'll quote from old Master Mazu, an 8th century Chinese ancestor, some distance from Master Bodhidharma. He said this: all of you should realize that your mind is Buddha, that mind is identical with Buddha. The great Master Bodhidharma came from India to China and transmitted this one mind teaching of the Mahayana so that it can lead you all to awakening. Fearing that you would be too confused and would not believe that this one mind is truly inherent with all of you, he used the Lankavatara Sutra to seal the sentient being's mind ground. Therefore, in the Lankavatara Sutra, mind is the essence of all Buddha's teachings, and no gate is the Dharma gate. If one wishes to know the way directly, ordinary mind itself is the way. The way is identical with the Dharma Dhatu. The way is identical with the cosmos itself. There you go. Just realize the cosmos is yourself, and you're done. So what is this one mind? What is this ordinary mind? You see, because it's possible to read this poorly. It's possible to hear words like this and say, oh, I guess everything I do is Zen. Why train? Why practice? It's all good. But somehow that doesn't really work out. It didn't work out that way for Dogen either, nor for Master Mazu or any of the ancestors. There's always this business of how do we realize directly and intimately this inherent and immanent truth? How do we wake up to and stay alive with this ordinary mind? Is there any difference between the ordinary mind of the great sage and the ordinary mind of the worldly fool, let us say? Well, let's see what the Lankavatara has to say. From chapter 8, in the Dwight Goddard epitomized version, we see this: the attainment of self-realization. Then said Mahamati to the Blessed One, pray, tell us more as to what constitutes the state of self-realization. The Blessed One replied, in the life of an earnest disciple, there are two aspects that are to be distinguished, that he would like to call to our attention. Namely, first, the state of attachment to the self-natures arising from the discriminations of themselves and their field of consciousness to which they are related. And second, to the excellent and exalted state of self-realization of noble wisdom. So let's pause for a second. Mahamati is asking the Buddha, what can you say to us about this self-realization business? Well, you need to be aware of two things. One, attachment to self-nature rising from your own discriminations. Be aware of this attachment. And two, self-realization of noble wisdom itself. Goes on further to say, the state of attachment to the discriminations of the self-natures of things, the self-natures of ideas, of selfhood itself, right? Importing a permanized, fixed reality to that which you perceive through your senses. The sights, the sounds, the feelings, the ideas, the sense of self itself. Uncritically examined, the mind will take them to be permanized and fixed, reliable things. And yet, with even a glancing bit of reflection, one can see evidence everywhere one looks to the contrary. So, this attachment to these perceived self-natures of things that arise give cause for emotions of pleasure or aversion to arise, according to your experience. It's this essential misperception at the very kind of pre-game level that makes everything on the playing board come out wonky. With this errant assumption in place, there is no correct move to be made. There's no gambit you can run that will outdo this errant perception at the very beginningless beginning of all things. One must confront it directly and see into the nature of who is it that's perceiving. How does this perceiving occur? What even is this emotion or this feeling of attraction or repulsion or neutrality? Not simply try to scramble the deck so that you win every hand, piling up treasures and fending off enemies. There's no answer here. No matter how good or bad you do with that, you're in the same game of ignorance, of delusion, the sutra says. Conforming themselves to the egolessness of things and holding back wrong views as to their own egolessness, a practitioner should abandon these thoughts and hold themselves firmly to the continuously ascending journey of the stages. Now, if you recall the kind of schema for the Lankavatara, one of the main teachings is the so-termed twofold egolessness. This is, the practitioner must see into the egolessness of the self, and the practitioner must see into the egolessness of things, okay? And don't be too confused about this. It just simply means see into the impermanent reality of self. It's not that you don't exist. It's not that things don't exist. It's the way in which they exist, which is misperceived. There's so many lovely, wonderful, merciful, compassionate exchanges in the koans of some students seeing into the egolessness of things, asserting that they're free from birth and death gleefully, and the Zen master, crack. The student goes, what the hell, man? So where's the egolessness now? It's right there, but the student can't see it, you see. It's just funny, my first teacher, Rinsen Roshii, told a story of his own encounter with this when he was in Doksan with Maizumi Roshi. And there's a few koan in there that resolve this issue of freedom from birth and death, you'll see. And Daido had thought he had passed through one of these barriers and was all puffed up on the fact that he was free from birth and death. And Maizumi got very serious looking all of a sudden. Free from birth and death? Oh, yeah. And Maizumi reached out and choked him. And Daido was a big dude, like a big Italian dude, right? And Maizumi's this little guy, but fast. He had these. And he had shock and awe on his side, So, and Daido's like, and then Maizumi's like, free from birth and death? And eventually Daido pushes him off. And then Maizumi starts laughing like crazy, and Daido's grasping for breath. Free from life and death? I don't think so. He rings the bell. So A, I'm not going to choke you in Dokusan. Don't worry about that. Although I'd be very efficient about it. I have many skills, But no, so we don't do such direct. We might venture there playfully, but it's a real thing to correctly perceive oneself, because once one does, then things become so much easier. Honest to God, we're not fighting against reality itself with every other thought, And this interesting line of letting go of egoness of self, letting go of permanized fixed self, seeing the selflessness of the self doesn't mean you're not there, but how is it that you're there, and what is there even, and the egolessness of things, and then holding firmly to the continuously ascending journey of the stages. Continuously ascending journey of the stages. Where's the everything is perfectly complete as it is business? What about inherent perfection? If there's inherent perfection and all things are exactly as they are, what need is there for any such thing as a stage? After all, you'll see many of the great lineage masters speaking about how perfect and complete, lacking nothing immediacy, it's done, bang. This is absolutely the case. And yet, what about this continuously ascending journey? So this is this confronts the logical, linear, analytical mind quite squarely. We tend to think in binaries. Is it A or is it B? And there's a hard and fast line between the two, and they're mutually exclusive. But life actually is very seldom like this. Sometimes, but not often. What is this continuous ascending journey of stages? This root text that all Zen lineages flow from speaks of stages and growth and development. Now, the text itself gives some answer to this question. The exalted state of self-realization as it relates to an earnest disciple is a state of mental concentration in which they seek to identify themselves with prajna, with noble wisdom. In this effort, they must seek to annihilate all vagrant thoughts and notions belonging to the externality of things, in all ideas of individuality and generality, of suffering and impermanence, and cultivate the noblest ideas of egolessness and emptiness and imagelessness. Thus will they attain a realization of truth that is free from passion and is ever serene. When this active effort at mental concentration is successful, that's the first of the stages, by the way, active effort at mental concentration, and it does require that in the beginning, then is followed by a more passive, receptive state of samadhi. You might say, in the beginning is yang. You have to actively direct yourself, right? If you don't learn how to put your mind where you want it to be for as long as you want it to be there, if you can't sit still for 20, 30 minutes, we can't help you. This has to be earned. One must actually do the work of guiding your own mind, taking custody of your attention. This is very, very challenging because it's so near to us. It's like you can't see your own eyeball. You can't smell your nose. The tongue has no taste unto itself. And yet, it needs to be addressed, you see. But then this concentration, this effort eventually becomes, it gets in the way, frankly. The very same concentration and effort that's required in the beginning must be jettisoned further along the line. Because the act of directing your mind in such a way itself initially becomes a great relief to the chaos and the tumult and the churn, right? One learns to direct one's mind. It's a great victory, honestly. Comes and goes a little bit, but progress happens. But eventually that very same effort of pointing yourself towards the breath or to the heart or to the one point itself becomes too aggressive feeling, you see. And so the sutra points out, then one becomes passive and receptive. One becomes yin, see, more receiving, less doing, more receiving. Now let's be clear, it's not like a 1, 2, 3 and you're done. There's a spiralic kind of evolutionary flow, okay? But there is a trend that happens here, you see. So meaning to say this, when you sit down in Zazen, the way we teach in this lineage is the first thing you've got to do is sit straight, pay attention to your body, and concentrate the mind with the breath. This is a necessary beginning because it centers the mind. One finds the still point, and you need that. You need to give yourself the gift. Well, you don't need to do anything, but the sutra recommends. If you want to be free from suffering and come to awakening and have all the goodies, one recommends that you learn to concentrate in this way, right? And the initial benefits from it are quite kind of dramatic, honestly. The first time or two when a person begins to actually feel some space between their environment and their reactions to the environment, it's an incredibly empowering thing. You are not purely a creature of nothing but automatic instinct. You can actually take custody. How you respond to things becomes more and more something that you can wield, and less something that you feel kind of wielded by. One begins to live less and less out of conditioning and unexamined assumptions, and more by conscious, direct compassion and love, frankly. And it shows. It shows. It radiates. The same way a person that's in a difficult state, it radiates. So too, one that's in a state of clarity and presence and love and compassion, it radiates. When this active effort at mental concentration is successful, and it takes a bit of gumption and a bit of doing, then it is followed by a more passive, receptive state of samadhi, of mental concentration and flow, in which the earnest disciple will enter into the blissful abode of noble wisdom. Bliss. In the hardcore tradition of Zen, whoa, bliss. And it really is. It's quite jubilant, actually, to unhook. It's like, you know, the fable of the lion with the thorn in the paw, you know, pain, and then the little rabbit or whatever it is pulls out the thorn, and it's a great relief, you know. It's something like this. But the sutra continues to say, be careful. This is the earnest disciple's first experience of the exalted state of realization. This is the first experience, but as yet there is no discarding of the habit energy, nor escaping from the transformation of death. Having attained this exalted and blissful state of realization as far as it can be attained by disciples, the bodhisattva must not, tune into this, The bodhisattva must not give themselves up to the enjoyment of its bliss. The bodhisattva must not give themselves up to the enjoyment of this bliss, which would mean cessation. But instead, they should think compassionately of other beings and keep ever fresh their vows of compassion and alleviation of suffering for all beings throughout space and time. Here we see a clear delineation between perhaps the initial movements of Dharma practice and its bodhisattvic reform. Sometimes it's a Zen teacher's job to help practitioners move from the spinning calamity and churn into a place of stillness. But then also sometimes it's a Zen teacher's job to help a student who's become attached to the bliss of this relief to not get stuck there. So you have a bell to ring. You have a chant to lead. Why don't you be Tenzo now? Right? And frankly, these tasks are quite small when compared with, you have a kid to raise. You have a career to deal with. You have a body that has illness. You have family that make you crazy. You have an election cycle approaching. One really need not manufacture, but sometimes we do just because it's helpful. The things which we encounter in the sort of microscope environment of Dharma, formal Dharma training practice, help us for the wider life. That's why we do them. It's not about learning to be a recluse so that you can just be a recluse and escape it all. Sometimes earnest young folk, you hit that wall where you actually confront something like what you think adult life is going to be. And one of the maneuvers is the juggernaut maneuver. I'm just going to bust through and make it all happen. That's a story. The other one is I'm just not going to play the game. I quit. I'm just going to stay in the basement and play video games. It's another story. Neither of which are really acceptable. There's some other way to come to this maturity that we need as individuals, that our society needs, that humanity itself needs. The bodhisattva must not give themselves up to the enjoyment of this bliss. Don't just hang out there. Don't be satisfied. Don't make a thing out of it. Don't get stuck. See? But you can't skip it. You can't skip the stage. That seeing for yourself that you can get off this ridiculous clown merry-go-round show needs to happen. If you try to just mentally go right to the end of the thing without going through the process, it's approximating something, but it's not actually there. Bill Evans is a very important jazz piano player, and he was once interviewed about the process of learning to play, and he said the most difficult thing is when a young musician approximates something very sophisticated, because you can't build on a false approximation. It is far better to do something much, much more simple, but that you actually understand. Because when you really see it clearly and you really have integrated it well, now you can build on this. And then one more pixel thing, and then integrate this, and then you can build on this, and then you can build on this. So you must not allow yourself to approximate Zen practice. Don't do something in the kind of this is sort of Zen-ish, Really, if you really take in the most basic concept, the most foundational practice, and really do that for real, massive progress, huge benefit. right? But it requires an immense amount of honesty with yourself, with what's actually happening. This is a very, very important point, and it's nothing new. This text was brought from India. It's at the very core of Chan practice and therefore Zen practice. Also had a serious influence, the Prajnaparamita literature, on Tibetan practice. Each generation tends to find itself and think, oh, we're unique and new. Well, kind of, but kind of not. They must not give themselves over to the enjoyment of this bliss, for that would mean cessation, but they should think compassionately of other beings and keep ever fresh their original vows. They should never let themselves rest in nor exert themselves towards the bliss of the samadhis. Interesting. But there's a warning that comes with the map. There is a dragon there, and not a nice one. Watch out for this one. But Mahamati, as earnest disciples go on trying to advance on the path that leads to full realization, there is one danger against which they must be on their guard. Tune in next week. No. For $9.95, no. You know, it's interesting, one of our league visited another center, which will be nameless, and you know, it seemed like, oh, well, lovely, lovely, and if you do a little bit of looking around, there's some trouble. And one of the things that you see, and I know many venerable folks who are in the administrative levels of different institutions. Dave Zimmerman, honorable one with the San Francisco lineage, an honorable line. There's so many. The Dharma Rain lineage, the Great Vow folks with Basho and so on. And this business of how do we exist? How do we actually make this available for everybody? You know, and the cultural assumptions in our sort of for-profit world, even the assumptions of the non-profit world, frankly, they don't entirely map to the Dharma. And yet we have to function in this world, and so we do. It's a great challenge. But this one danger is not a faulty org chart, although that could be problematic. But the one danger which they must be in their guard about, disciples may not appreciate, and I hope that we all do, appreciate that the mind system, because of its accumulated habit energy, goes on functioning more or less unconsciously as long as you live. The mind system, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, brain, okay? All of those different organs of perception. And then the ego consciousness, and then the sort of alaya, super storehouse consciousness, all these are together called the mind system. And the mind system keeps going, keeps functioning because of accumulated habit energy. And it's, in a way, it's incredibly natural. You know, if at one time you reached out and touched the thing and you got burned, it's in your cells not to do that again. That's karmic habit energy. It serves you well in many cases, but also it can become a prison. They may sometimes, the sutra continues to say, think that they can expedite the attainment of their goal of awakening by entirely suppressing the activities of the mind system. This is bullshit. What can I say? That's not me. This is a mistake, let's say. This is a mistake. In other words, non-thinking does not mean sit there and crush any thought that arises. It's not an internal mental game of whack-a-mole where you're smacking any thought. Okay? You know that game? It used to be one of the terrors of Chuck E. Cheese, which itself is a terror. But the little thing pops up and the kiddo has the mallet, you gotta bonk it, and then another one pops up and you gotta bonk that. That's how the game goes. Easily amused, right? But your meditation, your zazen is not like this. Even back in the very nascent beginnings of the tradition, look, dude, it's not about crushing your own mind. It's not about having no thoughts. Oh, I could never meditate, after all, I have thoughts. What? I could never work out. I have a body. Okay. But the sutra says it's not about just clamping down, sitting there trying to constipate your own mind. Stop it. This is not what we're doing, right? For even if the activities of the mind are suppressed, the mind will go on functioning because of the seeds of habit energy that remain in it. A Freudian, Jungian, 20th century analyst might say, yeah, there's an unconscious. Things keep churning, right? What they think is extinction of mind is really the non-functioning of the mind's external world to which they are no longer attached. That is, the goal is to be reached not by suppressing all mind activity, but by getting rid of discriminations and attachments to them. So, non-thinking means don't cling to the thoughts. Allow the thoughts to enter, have their experience, and float away, and don't play with them. Suzuki Roshi famously made the analogy to keep the front and the back door open and allow the guest to come in and to go out. Don't hold onto. This bodhisattva vow holds up what I would say is, if not the one of the highest ideals of human capacity. It's no less than that. It's not sufficient to be unable to function in your life. It's not acceptable. You can do better. Let's do it. But it's also not acceptable to just hang out and being successful in life. That too is not enough. It's not about thinking Buddhist thoughts. It's not about suppressing thinking altogether. Rather, it has to do with this realization of one mind, this ordinary mind, which from the very beginning has always been exactly thus. And yet, it's possible for us to miss it. It's possible, in fact, it's quite likely, honestly, to go moments, hours, days, seasons, years, decades, lifetimes perhaps, without stopping to notice who you really are, what the cosmos actually is. And that's a great tragedy. So, attachment to self-natures as they arise in the discriminating mind. Notice what arises. Enjoy what you enjoy. Stay away from things you should stay away from. Things that don't need your attention don't deserve it. It's all fine. Just don't be attached. And do not misperceive the way in which this whole light show is happening. Seen clearly, seen compassionately, we're able to rise from the seat of practice and bring that ordinary mind, that manifestation of cosmic love into the world of this and that, yes and no, political systems, warfare, famine, abundance, family, aloneness, all of it. For the sake of all beings throughout space and time, may we realize it and give it away. May it be so.
Thank you again for being here today. Do we have any announcements?